I swear to God, every time I rant and rave, with good reason, about the sad state of horse games in America, somebody's always chiming in with, oh, Red Dead Redemption, oh, Legend of Zelda. Hush, zip it. I don't want to hear it. I do not want to play a sweaty man who raids and pillages on horseback. I want to play as a pretty princess who raids and pillages on horseback, and that is not happening, so that's the fucking problem. No, I'm sorry, but horse games do suck, and this is not just the opinion of one fan. The entire community of horse game enthusiasts has long been groaning about the consistent lack of quality and available titles. And we really can't ignore that the majority of these players are women and girls, and historically, people who've made the games for this audience were not women and girls, and also not very good at their job. Well, guess what? I'm a game designer and a woman. Well, almost, technically, if you stand 12 feet away and kind of squint. The point is, I don't just believe that horse games can be made better. I want to get to the bottom of the problem and then loudly complain about it to every game developer within earshot. And the problem is this. For some inexplicable reason, I can't paint my horse purple. I see you backing away from this argument already, but stay with me, babe. Seriously, why can't my horse be purple? Why can't its hooves be rainbow colored when that would be so badass? Now all of a sudden, I can't dress my horse like Elizabeth I because if I wrap it in a starch collar and drape it in a golden kirtle, it somehow won't be able to wear its saddle. Well, why does it have to wear a saddle? The answer to all of these questions is invariably, you can't do that because that's not what a real horse would do. Well, I've got news for you, honey. That isn't a real horse. You need to understand something very important about games. Every single game you have ever played in your life is an abstraction of a real life experience. Yes, an abstraction, but not a simulation. The essence of a great game designer is somebody who can take a real life experience, prune away all the unimportant details, and emphasize the core interactions to create this compelling interactive experience. And we tend to forget this because almost as long as commercial video games have been around, game companies have been competing for consumer attention by trying to outperform each other in terms of graphics and computer capabilities. So they're trying to make games that look more realistic or are more complex and more rich. That leads to the false dogma that a game that is more realistic is inherently a better one. And when I look at the majority of horse games, so many of them fall into this trap of trying to make a game that is more real instead of more fun. There are a lot of people in the horse game community who believe that the reason horse games are bad is because they're not accurate. I disagree. I think they're bad because they're not creative. There is such an overemphasis on simulating menial horse care tasks, fatuous equine events, and absolutely tragic fashion. Yes, I'm sorry. Horse girlies, I know it's hard to hear this, but it has been 50 years. We really need to retire the uniform. Y'all look like Hammer Bros on the way to a job interview. In a typical horse game, there's no difference between a Pinto and a Percheron. Nobody bothered to program these things with different stats and personalities. Now that would have been compelling. This is literally just a texture swap, and for some reason, we don't want to swap that with a little Renaissance silver or something. Now I'm going to show you guys a game called Alicia Online. This was a fantasy horse racing MMO. It was originally developed by a Korean company called Entry that's now being run on private servers, but please take a look. This game has magical spell casting, double jumps, there's a talking cat that's following you around for some reason, and of course there's these barrel rolls that happen when you fall over. These would absolutely kill you in real life. But they just happen regularly on the racetrack, I guess. You may notice that this is a completely absurd and unrealistic portrayal of what actual horse racing is. And you may also notice that it's fucking awesome. This game's been like literally offline for several years, and it's still, I think, one of the strongest horse games that's ever been released. Like, there are games out today that suck compared to Alicia Online. And that is because the designers got rid of everything in real horse racing that would detract from the experience of riding a horse, and then they threw every crazy and chaotic thing they could think of to enhance that rushing, thrilling, exhilarating feeling. We're gonna get nerdy here, guys. We're gonna get fucking nerdy here. We're gonna be talking about camera angles. I'm gonna blow your mind with something. During races, Alicia Online uses this camera trick called a widened field of vision. This is a very common technique used in racing games. A wide field of vision exposes more visual information on a screen than true human vision. Anytime the camera moves, we're perceiving more motion, and thus we feel as though we are moving faster. This sensation is called vection. It's the thing that makes a lot of people motion sick, but let's move on. Now, to enhance player vection as far as possible, you need to be perceiving motion. So what Alicia Online does is it crowds the sides of the racetrack with lots of little buildings and objects. So as the player camera is moving forward, you perceive objects like really whizzing by and going at a quick speed. Lots of racing games do this. Keep that in mind, because now we're going to switch over to another game. This is called Rival Stars Horse Racing. Rival Stars Horse Racing is on Steam. The general consensus is that it is okay. Rival Stars is also a horse game. Rival Stars is also a racing game. Rival Stars also uses a widened field of vision during horse races. But when you compare both of these games side by side, Alicia Online still looks like way more fucking baller. It's just like clearly the cooler game. Why is that? Rival Stars is basing their racetrack off of a real horse racetrack. Real racetracks are flat and empty, because any objects in the periphery are in danger of distracting the real horses while they are racing. But these are not real horses. Do you see what I'm talking about here? The developers deliberately made the game more boring for the sake of realism, but the real version of this isn't boring. If you're a real jockey bouncing your ass off a real horse, that feels cool and exhilarating. So make a game that is exhilarating. What's not clicking here? We have several decades of game history under our belts, and we're approaching the limit of realistic graphics. I think we're starting to realize that realism and fun in games never truly correlated. Sony and Microsoft may have better graphics in their consoles, but Nintendo still continues to dominate sales. The Call of Duty franchise collaborates with the United States military to simulate real guns that are being manufactured. We do not have time to unpack all of that, but the point is they still do not make nearly as much money as Fortnite, a first-person shooter where you parasail onto a map using an inflatable hamburger. You know, if I were to graph a game's realism to how fun it is to play, it would actually look something like this. A hyper-realistic simulation here might be fun because it offers players an extremely close approximation of its corporeal counterpart, but anything that lands here in the middle inevitably feels boring because everyone's just comparing it to the real thing and it always falls short. I call this the uncanny valley. She's so creative. Meanwhile, on the other end of the spectrum, the closer a game gets to abstraction, the more freedom a game designer has to tweak it for maximum fun, and to the surprise of absolutely nobody, it usually is more fun. The miracle of art, particularly in the medium of video games, is that reality is not a restriction. Horse game developers, unshackle yourselves from the idea that you have to make a perfect recreation of what already exists out there and ask yourself, what is fun about horses, and how can I take that seed and build on it? I mean, I'm sure that somebody wants to play an ultra-realistic simulation ranch management game with high-end crossbreeding genetic engine and perfect animation and hair physics, but I believe a lot more people, including myself, want to see fantastical horse games, silly horse games that zero in on some unique facet of the lifestyle and put a new creative spin on it. And we've seen this with a lot of other animals and a lot of other genres. I don't understand why specifically horse games are being left out. Like, horses are like one of the coolest domesticated animals ever. Like, it runs on its toenails. It's a friend you can ride. Like, what are we doing? So the next time you're playing a horse game, ask yourself, why are you picking your horse's hooves clean when you could be mounting it with a jetpack? Why you have to be brushing its mane when you could instead be braiding it with neon and vines? In fact, why is this even a horse at all? I'm dead serious. This could be a unicorn, it could be a Pegasus, it could be a centaur, it could be a hippogriff, it could be a carousel horse, it could be a seahorse, it could be two men dressed as a horse, it could be anything that is fun to ride, but for God's sakes, make something that is fun to ride. If I really wanted to ride a real horse, I would not be playing a video game. I would be moseying on over to the nearest ranch and making my hamstrings beg for mercy because those things are really wide around the hips. And yet here I am, playing mediocre horse games. But now that we know how to make them better, we don't have any excuses anymore. We shouldn't be seeing those games on Steam anymore, right? Answer me, Horsetails Emerald Valley Ranch. Apologize. Okay, thanks for watching.